Long before Columbus set foot in the Americas, two fierce warrior cultures met in a battle for survival. The Vikings, legendary seafarers from the north, had conquered lands across Europe. But what happened when they encountered the Native Americans, masters of the land skilled in warfare and survival? Did the Vikings establish a colony in the New World? Or did the native tribes push them back into the sea? The truth behind this forgotten clash will change everything you thought you knew about history. Stay with us as we uncover the epic battle between Vikings and Native Americans. The Vikings discover America. Most people believe Columbus discovered the New World in 1492, but nearly 500 years earlier, Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red, set sail from Greenland and reached the shores of North America. The Norse sagas, ancient Viking stories passed down through generations, describe how Leif Erikson and his crew sailed west in search of new lands. They first encountered a barren, icy land, which they called Helluland, likely Baffin Island. Further south, they reached Markland, believed to be Labrador, a region covered in thick forests, ideal for shipbuilding. But their most promising discovery was Vinland, a land rich in resources where wild grapes grew in abundance. Vinland, the first Viking settlement in America. Excited by the possibilities, the Vikings established a small settlement, likely at L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland, Canada. The site, uncovered by archaeologists in the 1960s, confirms that Norse explorers reached North America around the year 1000 CE. The Vikings built wooden longhouses similar to those in Greenland and Iceland and prepared to stay. Vinland was different from their cold Nordic homeland. It was warmer, fertile, and full of natural resources. The Vikings found plenty of fish, forests for timber, and rich pastures for grazing livestock. They believed they had found a new home. But they also noticed signs of other inhabitants. They were not alone in this new world. The first contact: trade or war. At first, the Vikings and the Skrælings, the Norse name for the Native Americans, observed each other cautiously. The Vikings were seasoned explorers, but they had never encountered people quite like the indigenous tribes of North America. Likewise, the Native Americans had never seen tall, bearded warriors in metal armor arriving on massive wooden ships. According to the Vinland sagas, early interactions were peaceful yet tense. The Vikings set up camp near the coast, while the Skrælings watched from a distance. The two groups began to interact, and a brief period of trade followed. The Norse were particularly interested in furs, animal skins, and native goods, while the Skrælings seemed fascinated by Viking iron tools and red cloth. Tensions rise, a cultural clash. Despite the initial peaceful exchanges, misunderstandings quickly led to conflict. The Norse sagas describe an incident where a Viking bull escaped into a native settlement, terrifying the Skrælings, who had never seen such an animal before. The sight of this massive beast rampaging through their village was interpreted as a sign of aggression. Another story tells of a Viking raising his sword during a trade negotiation, not as a threat, but as a way to signal interest in a trade item. However, the Skrælings saw this as a sign of hostility. Tensions escalated, and soon arrows flew and axes were drawn. A Viking attack, the first skirmish. One account describes how a group of Skrælings approached a Viking settlement in large numbers, possibly preparing to attack. The Norse, seeing this as a direct threat, launched a surprise attack, killing several native warriors. However, the Skrælings quickly regrouped and retaliated, outnumbering the Vikings and forcing them to retreat. The native warriors were fast, skilled in ambush tactics, and experts in the terrain. While the Vikings were trained in hand-to-hand combat, they struggled to fight against hit-and-run attacks from archers who knew the land better than they did. The brief period of peaceful contact had ended in bloodshed, and now, war was inevitable. The battles. A Viking defeat? With relations between the Vikings and the Native Americans turning hostile, full-scale battles soon erupted. The Norse, accustomed to fighting in shield walls and close-quarters combat, quickly learned that the native warriors fought in an entirely different way. one that would make Vinland impossible to hold: the Native American tactics. The Vikings expected traditional battles, where warriors clashed in formations. But the Native American tribes in the region relied on speed, ambush tactics, and overwhelming numbers. They struck without warning, using the dense forests to their advantage, appearing and disappearing with deadly precision. The native warriors carried bows, spears, and war clubs, which they used with expert precision. They avoided direct confrontation, instead launching hit-and-run attacks, weakening the Norse forces over time. While the Vikings had iron weapons and shields, their heavy armor slowed them down in the thick forests of North America, making them vulnerable to arrows and quick strikes. The Battle of Vinland, a final stand. One of the most famous battles in the Viking sagas describes a large-scale attack on the Norse settlement. The Vikings, led by Thorfinn Karlsefni, were outnumbered but determined to hold their ground. The native warriors launched a massive assault, their war cries echoing through the trees as they surrounded the Viking camp. The Norse formed a defensive line, their shields locked together, their swords and axes ready. At first, the Vikings held off the attack, cutting down warriors who came too close. But the native warriors fought smarter, launching flaming projectiles into the Viking settlement, setting buildings ablaze. The chaos forced the Norse to break formation, making them even more vulnerable. Freya's magic and the Viking retreat. In one bizarre account, one of the Viking women, Freydis Eiriksdottir, supposedly took up arms when the battle turned against the Norse. According to legend, she grabbed a sword and beat her chest, letting out a blood-curdling scream so terrifying that it momentarily stopped the native warriors in their tracks. However, even this fearsome display was not enough to change the tide of battle. Realizing they could not win against a larger, more mobile enemy, the Vikings retreated. Their dream of establishing a permanent colony in North America was over. Why did the Vikings lose? Despite their legendary reputation, the Vikings were simply not prepared for the conditions and style of warfare in North America. The Native Americans knew the land, rivers, and forests far better than the Norse. Used long-range weapons, such as bows and spears, which neutralized the Vikings' close combat skills. Had superior numbers, allowing them to fight wars of attrition where they could keep attacking and retreating without major losses. After several failed attempts to maintain their foothold, the Vikings abandoned Vinland forever. The Native Americans had defended their land and the Norse never returned. But did all the Vikings leave? Or did some stay behind, becoming part of the local tribes? The answer might be hidden in history's greatest mysteries. A lost colony? The Vikings may have abandoned Vinland, but the mystery remains. Did all of them leave? Or did some Vikings stay behind, disappearing into the vast wilderness of North America? Some historians believe that a small group of Norse settlers could have survived by integrating with local Native American tribes. There are even legends among some indigenous groups of tall, pale-skinned warriors with red hair, unlike any other people they had encountered before. Could these have been the last remnants of the Viking explorers? Strange evidence. Traces of the Vikings in North America. Over the centuries, several puzzling discoveries have fueled speculation that some Vikings never left the New World. The Kensington Runestone, Minnesota, USA. A mysterious stone carved with Norse runes, supposedly left behind by Vikings in the 14th century. Though debated, some believe it proves Viking explorers traveled deep into North America long after Vinland was abandoned. Old Norse words in Native American languages. Some linguists claim that a few Norse words may have influenced the languages of certain indigenous tribes, possibly suggesting cultural contact that lasted beyond the Viking settlements. Iron artifacts in native sites. Archaeologists have found iron tools and weapons in areas where Native American cultures didn't practice ironworking. Could these have been Viking-made, a hidden Viking legacy? If a group of Vikings did stay behind, they would have needed to adapt to Native American ways to survive. Over generations, their culture and traditions might have blended with those of local tribes, eventually erasing all visible traces of their Norse identity. Could Viking bloodlines still exist among some Native American groups today? We may never know the full truth, but the idea that Vikings walked the forests of North America long before Columbus changes how we see history. The Old World and the New were connected far earlier than we once believed. But what if the Vikings had stayed longer? Could they have built a lasting colony in America? And how might history have changed if Norse culture had blended with native civilizations? Stay with us as we continue uncovering hidden connections, lost civilizations, and history's greatest mysteries. Enjoying the journey through history? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of history enthusiasts. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us what you think, share your favorite historical insights, or suggest a topic you'd love to see us explore. And if you know someone who would love diving into the past, share this video with them. Let's uncover history together.